Most people believe they understand human behavior. They believe they know why people act the way they do. But the truth is very different. Human nature is complex. People hide their real intentions. They speak one way but feel another. They smile, yet their thoughts remain unseen. Every day we interact with people who influence our emotions, our decisions, and sometimes even our future. Some people inspire us. Some people confuse us. And some people manipulate us without us even noticing. What if you could see through these hidden patterns? What if you could understand why people behave the way they do, while also learning to control your own reactions? This audiobook is about mastering human nature. You will learn how to read people, understand their motives, and stay calm in situations where others lose control. If you want to continue learning these powerful skills, subscribe to this channel now. New audiobooks and chapters are released here regularly. Now, let us begin the journey of understanding human nature. Chapter 1. The hidden forces that drive human behavior. Human behavior rarely begins with logic. Most people believe they act based on clear thinking. They believe their choices come from careful decisions. But much of human behavior starts somewhere deeper. It begins with emotion. It begins with instinct. It begins with patterns built long before we are aware of them. Every person carries invisible forces inside the mind. These forces shape reactions, opinions, and relationships. Most of the time, people do not see these forces clearly. They only see the results. A person becomes angry. Another becomes defensive. Someone avoids a conversation. Someone else tries to control it. These reactions seem sudden, but they rarely appear without a cause. Human nature follows patterns. When you begin to recognize these patterns, something changes. People become easier to understand. Their actions start to make sense. Their emotions become less confusing. This understanding is the first step in mastering human nature. Many people believe they understand themselves well. They believe they know why they react the way they do. But self-awareness is rare. Most people move through life on automatic patterns. They repeat habits learned in childhood. They react based on past experiences. A small comment may trigger a strong emotion. A certain tone may create discomfort. A certain situation may create fear. The reaction feels immediate, but the cause often comes from deeper memory. Human beings are emotional creatures before they are logical ones. Logic often arrives later. A person may make a decision emotionally. Then they explain that decision with logic. This is common, and it happens to almost everyone. When you understand this, you stop expecting perfect rational behavior from people. You begin to see the emotional layers beneath their actions. This awareness makes you calmer. Instead of reacting to surface behavior, you start noticing the deeper patterns. For example, some people constantly seek approval. They want to be liked. They want validation. Their decisions are often guided by this desire. Another person may fear losing control. They may try to dominate conversations. They may interrupt others frequently. Their behavior may look confident, but underneath it often lies insecurity. Human behavior often hides deeper emotions. Fear hides behind aggression. Insecurity hides behind arrogance. Loneliness hides behind silence. When you begin to see these hidden emotions, people stop feeling unpredictable. They start feeling understandable. This understanding is powerful, but mastering human nature requires something more than reading others. It requires understanding yourself. Many people try to analyze other people without examining their own behavior. This creates blind spots. Your emotions influence how you interpret others. If you feel insecure, you may see rejection everywhere. If you feel defensive, you may assume people are attacking you. Your inner state shapes your perception. Because of this, self-awareness becomes essential. When you understand your own emotional triggers, you gain control. You notice when your emotions rise. You notice when your thoughts become defensive. This awareness gives you a moment of choice. In that moment, you can pause. You can observe instead of react. This pause is the beginning of self-control. Self-control is one of the most powerful skills in mastering human nature. Without it, Understanding people becomes dangerous. When you see through people's behavior but cannot control your reactions, conflict increases. But when awareness and self-control work together, your presence becomes calm. Calm people observe more. They notice details others miss. They see changes in tone. They see hesitation. They see discomfort. These signals reveal what words often hide. People reveal their inner state through small signals: a pause before answering, a sudden change in voice, a shift in posture. These signals appear naturally. Most people miss them because they are focused on themselves. They think about what they will say next. They worry about how they sound. When attention stays on yourself, you miss the world around you. Mastering human nature requires shifting attention outward. Observe quietly. Watch how people react to stress. Watch how they respond to praise. Watch how they behave when they feel threatened. These moments reveal character. Character appears most clearly when comfort disappears. Another important truth about human nature is that people rarely see themselves accurately. They create stories about who they are. A person may believe they are very rational, but their decisions may be emotional. Another person may believe they are kind, but their behavior may often be controlling. The human mind protects its self-image. It filters information that threatens identity. This is why people often resist feedback. Feedback challenges the story they believe about themselves. Understanding this helps you avoid unnecessary conflict. Instead of directly attacking someone's self-image, you learn to communicate carefully. Direct attacks create defense. Defense blocks understanding. Calm observation creates insight. Another pattern in human nature is the need for status. Humans are social creatures. In groups, people constantly measure position. Who has influence? Who has respect? Who is listened to? These signals affect behavior strongly. Some people compete openly for status. They talk louder. They dominate conversations. Others compete quietly. They seek approval. They try to appear knowledgeable. Both behaviors come from the same need, the need to feel valued. When people feel respected, they relax. When people feel ignored, they react. Understanding this helps you navigate social situations more smoothly. You do not need to compete constantly. You can observe the dynamics. Observation gives you advantage. Another important part of human nature is emotional contagion. Emotions spread quickly between people. An anxious person can make a room feel tense. A calm person can make others relax. Your emotional state influences the environment around you. This means mastering human nature also means managing your emotional presence. When you remain calm, others often follow. Calm is powerful. It creates stability in uncertain situations. Another truth about human nature is the desire for certainty. People want clear answers. They want predictable outcomes. Uncertainty creates discomfort. Because of this, people often accept simple explanations, even when reality is complex. They prefer quick conclusions. But human behavior is rarely simple. Motives overlap. Emotions conflict. A person may act kindly and selfishly at the same time. Understanding human nature means accepting complexity. Avoid quick judgments. Observe patterns over time. Patterns reveal truth more clearly than single moments. Another important part of mastering human nature is patience. Insight does not appear instantly. It develops slowly through observation. You learn by watching how people behave in different situations. You learn by noticing repeated reactions. Over time, patterns become clear. Patience protects you from manipulation. Manipulation often works by creating emotional urgency. A manipulator pushes for quick decisions, quick reactions. When you slow down, manipulation loses power. Calm observation protects your independence. Another essential skill is emotional distance. This does not mean becoming cold. It means maintaining perspective. When emotions become intense, thinking becomes narrow. Distance allows clarity. Clarity allows better decisions. The ability to stay calm while observing human behavior gives you strength. You do not need to control people. You only need to understand them. Understanding creates freedom, freedom from unnecessary conflict, freedom from manipulation, freedom from emotional chaos. Mastering human nature begins with awareness, awareness of others, awareness of yourself. When these two forms of awareness combine, your perception changes. You start to see behavior more clearly, you understand motives more easily, and most importantly, you gain control over your own reactions. This control becomes your greatest advantage, because while you cannot control the nature of others, you can always learn to master your own. Chapter 2. Seeing the emotional patterns behind people's actions. People often explain their actions with logic. They give reasons that sound clear and thoughtful. But most behavior does not begin with logic. It begins with emotion. Emotions move faster than thinking. They rise before the mind has time to analyze the situation. A person may feel threatened. A person may feel ignored. A person may feel jealous. These emotions appear quietly, sometimes without clear awareness. After the emotion appears, behavior follows. Only later does the mind create explanations. This pattern is common in human nature. Understanding it helps you see beyond the surface of people's actions. For example, someone may speak harshly during a conversation. They may appear aggressive or rude, but the real cause may not be anger. It may be fear, fear of losing control, fear of being judged, fear of appearing weak. Aggression often hides vulnerability. When you recognize this pattern, you stop reacting only to the surface. You begin to understand the emotional layer beneath behavior. This awareness changes how you respond. Instead of reacting with more anger, you can stay calm. Calm observation allows you to see more clearly. Many emotional reactions follow predictable patterns. One of the most common patterns is insecurity. Insecurity appears in many forms. Some people try to dominate conversations. They interrupt others. They try to appear knowledgeable about everything. This behavior may look like confidence, but often it hides deep insecurity. The person fears being seen as less capable, so they try to control the situation. Another person may respond differently to insecurity. Instead of dominating, they withdraw. They avoid attention. They stay quiet. They hesitate before speaking. This behavior may appear calm or humble, but the root emotion may still be insecurity. Different people express the same emotion in different ways. Understanding this helps you avoid quick judgments. A quiet person is not always calm. A loud person is not always confident. Human behavior is rarely what it first appears to be. Another powerful emotional pattern is the desire for recognition. Every human being wants to feel valued. People want to feel that their presence matters. When this need is satisfied, people become relaxed. They become cooperative. But when this need is ignored, tension appears. A person who feels invisible may become defensive. A person who feels unappreciated may become resentful. These reactions often surprise others, but the cause is simple. Humans need recognition. Recognition does not mean praise all the time. It means being seen and acknowledged. Small signals can satisfy this need. Listening carefully, responding with attention, showing respect during conversation. These signals create emotional safety. When people feel safe, they reveal their true character. Another emotional pattern involves pride. Pride protects identity. When someone feels their identity is threatened, strong reactions appear. For example, a person may react strongly to criticism. Even small criticism may trigger anger or denial. The reason is not always the criticism itself. The reason is the threat to identity. People protect their self-image carefully. They want to believe certain things about themselves. When those beliefs are challenged, emotions rise. Understanding this helps you communicate more effectively. Direct attacks on identity create resistance. Gentle communication reduces that resistance. Another common emotional pattern is envy. Envy appears when people compare themselves to others. Comparison is natural in social environments. People observe status, success, and attention. When someone feels they are falling behind, envy may appear. Envy rarely shows itself openly. Instead, it appears through subtle behavior. A person may criticize someone's success. They may dismiss achievements. They may show quiet hostility. These behaviors often confuse people, but envy explains them. When you recognize envy, you understand the hidden tension. Understanding does not mean encouraging envy. It means recognizing its presence without becoming emotionally involved. Another important emotional pattern is fear of loss. Humans fear losing important things. They fear losing relationships. They fear losing status. They fear losing control. This fear can drive powerful reactions. A person who fears losing influence may try to manipulate situations. A person who fears losing attention may create drama. A person who fears losing approval may change their behavior constantly. Fear of loss often leads to manipulation. Recognizing this pattern protects you from being controlled. When you see the fear beneath someone's behavior, their actions become clearer. Another emotional pattern involves loyalty. People develop strong emotional bonds with groups. These groups may be family, friends, workplaces, or communities. Loyalty creates a sense of belonging. But loyalty can also influence behavior strongly. A person may defend their group, even when the group is wrong. They may ignore facts that threaten group identity. This behavior is not always logical. It is emotional. Understanding loyalty helps you understand why people sometimes reject clear evidence. Their loyalty is stronger than their logic. Another emotional force is the need for control. Some people feel comfortable only when they control situations. They want predictability. They want stability. When situations become uncertain, they react strongly. They may attempt to direct conversations. They may resist change. They may challenge new ideas. These behaviors are often driven by fear of uncertainty. Understanding this helps you remain patient. You see the emotional cause behind the behavior. Another pattern involves emotional projection. People often project their own emotions onto others. A person who feels insecure may accuse others of being critical. A person who feels dishonest may suspect dishonesty in others. Projection allows people to avoid facing their own emotions. When you recognize projection, you avoid unnecessary conflict. You understand that the accusation may reflect the speaker's inner state. Another emotional pattern is emotional contagion. Emotions spread quickly between people. An anxious person can create tension in a group. A calm person can bring stability. Your emotional state affects the environment around you. This means mastering human nature also includes managing your own emotions. When you remain calm, you influence the emotional atmosphere. Your presence becomes stabilizing. Another important emotional pattern involves trust. Trust grows slowly, but it can disappear quickly. Trust depends on consistency. When people behave predictably, trust grows. When behavior becomes unpredictable, trust weakens. Understanding this pattern helps you build stronger relationships. Consistency creates emotional safety. Another emotional pattern is resentment. Resentment builds slowly over time. It often begins with small disappointments. Unspoken frustrations accumulate. Eventually, resentment appears through subtle behavior, cold responses, passive resistance, hidden hostility. Many conflicts begin this way. Understanding resentment helps you address problems earlier. You notice tension before it becomes destructive. Another important emotional force is hope. Hope motivates behavior. People act when they believe positive outcomes are possible. When hope disappears, motivation fades. Understanding hope helps you influence situations positively. Encouraging realistic optimism strengthens cooperation. Another pattern involves emotional memory. People remember emotional experiences strongly. A single painful event may influence behavior for years. This explains why people sometimes react strongly to small triggers. The trigger connects to an older emotional memory. Understanding this helps you remain patient. You see the deeper cause behind reactions. Another emotional pattern involves self-protection. Humans naturally protect themselves from emotional pain. They avoid situations that feel threatening. They defend their beliefs strongly. Self-protection explains why people resist change. Change challenges familiar patterns. Familiar patterns feel safe. Recognizing this helps you introduce ideas more carefully. Gradual change feels safer than sudden change. Another emotional pattern is curiosity. Curiosity motivates learning. People who remain curious adapt more easily. Curiosity reduces fear. Curiosity opens the mind. When curiosity replaces judgment, understanding grows. Mastering human nature requires cultivating curiosity. Observe people with interest, not criticism. Observation reveals emotional patterns. Over time, these patterns become easier to recognize. You begin to see behavior differently. Actions become signals. Signals reveal emotions. And emotions explain behavior. This understanding gives you a powerful advantage. You no longer react blindly. You observe. You understand. You respond calmly. When you see the emotional patterns behind people's actions, human behavior stops feeling confusing. It becomes readable, and that clarity protects you from manipulation while strengthening your control over yourself. Chapter 3: Why People Manipulate and How It Really Works. Manipulation is older than language itself. It appears in families, friendships, workplaces, and even small daily interactions. Many people think manipulation is rare. They imagine it only appears in extreme situations. But manipulation often happens quietly. It hides behind normal conversation. It hides behind kindness. It hides behind emotional pressure. To master human nature, you must understand why people manipulate. Manipulation rarely begins with evil intention. It usually begins with desire, a desire for control, a desire for advantage, a desire to avoid responsibility. When someone wants an outcome strongly, they may search for ways to influence others. Sometimes they use honest communication. Other times they use emotional pressure. This is where manipulation begins. Manipulation works by affecting emotions. When emotions become intense, thinking becomes weaker. A person who feels guilty may agree to something they do not want. A person who feels afraid may accept a decision quickly. A person who feels flattered may trust too easily. Manipulation uses these emotional openings. Many manipulators do not even realize they are doing it. They learned the behavior over time. Perhaps they grew up in an environment where direct communication was difficult. Perhaps they learned that emotional pressure worked better than honesty. Over time, manipulation becomes a habit. Understanding this helps you see manipulation clearly. It is not magic. It follows patterns. One common method is guilt. Guilt is powerful because humans want to feel morally good. When someone suggests that you are selfish, careless, or unfair, guilt appears. A manipulator may say something like this. They may remind you of everything they have done for you. They may suggest that refusing them would hurt them deeply. The goal is not to share information. The goal is to create emotional pressure. When guilt rises, many people act quickly to remove it. They agree. They apologize. They change their decision. This is how guilt becomes a tool of manipulation. Another common method is fear. Fear creates urgency. When people feel threatened, they react quickly. A manipulator may create the feeling that something bad will happen if you do not cooperate. They may warn you about consequences. They may exaggerate risks. The goal is to make calm thinking difficult. Fear narrows attention. It pushes people toward fast decisions. Manipulation often relies on speed. When you slow down, manipulation loses power. Another method is flattery. Flattery feels pleasant. It feeds the desire for recognition. A manipulator may praise your intelligence. They may praise your kindness. At first, the praise feels genuine, but soon a request appears. The praise creates emotional openness. Once you feel valued, you become more willing to help. This technique is common because it feels harmless. But when praise is used to influence decisions, it becomes manipulation. Another method involves confusion. Some manipulators overwhelm conversations with complexity. They change topics quickly. They mix facts with emotion. They speak rapidly. The goal is to make you feel uncertain. When people feel confused, they doubt their own judgment. Doubt weakens confidence. When confidence weakens, influence becomes easier. Another subtle technique is emotional projection. A manipulator may accuse you of behaviors they are doing themselves. For example, they may say you are being unfair. They may say you are being controlling. These accusations create emotional confusion. You begin defending yourself. While you are defending, the manipulator shifts the focus. This technique works because people want to protect their reputation. Another powerful method is selective kindness. A manipulator may behave warmly most of the time. They may be helpful and supportive, but when they want something, their behavior changes. Kindness becomes conditional. This creates emotional dependence. You begin wanting their approval. When approval becomes important, influence increases. Another common technique is creating urgency. A manipulator may say a decision must happen immediately. They may say there is no time to think. Urgency blocks reflection. Reflection protects independence. Without reflection, people rely on emotion. Emotion becomes easier to guide. Another technique involves playing the victim. Victim narratives attract sympathy. When someone presents themselves as suffering, people feel compassion. A manipulator may exaggerate hardship. They may describe themselves as misunderstood or mistreated. The goal is not always honesty. The goal is emotional leverage. Compassion becomes pressure. You may feel responsible for their emotional comfort. Another method is comparison. A manipulator may compare you to others. They may say others are more helpful. They may suggest others would behave differently. Comparison creates insecurity. Insecurity weakens confidence. When confidence weakens, influence becomes easier. Understanding these methods changes how you experience conversations. Instead of reacting emotionally, you begin observing patterns. Observation gives you distance. Distance gives you clarity. Clarity protects your decisions. But mastering human nature also requires understanding why manipulation works. Manipulation succeeds when people lack emotional awareness. If you do not notice guilt rising, guilt controls you. If you do not notice fear rising, fear guides your choices. Awareness interrupts this process. When you notice an emotion appearing, you gain a moment of choice. That moment is powerful. It allows you to pause. Pause breaks manipulation. Another important protection is patience. Manipulation often depends on speed. Slowing the conversation reduces emotional pressure. You do not need to answer immediately. You can ask questions. You can ask for time. Time restores clarity. Another protection is boundaries. Boundaries define what you accept and what you refuse. Without boundaries, manipulation spreads. With boundaries, influence stops. Boundaries do not require aggression. They require calm clarity. You state your limits without emotional conflict. Another powerful protection is self-trust. When you trust your judgment, external pressure weakens. Manipulators often target uncertainty. If you doubt your decisions, their influence grows. Confidence protects independence. Confidence does not mean stubbornness. It means staying connected to your values. Another key defense is emotional balance. Manipulation feeds on emotional extremes. When emotions become intense, reasoning fades. Calm thinking protects you. Calm allows observation. Observation reveals patterns. Another important idea is recognizing repeated behavior. A single emotional request may not be manipulation, but repeated patterns reveal intention. If someone constantly creates guilt, that pattern matters. If someone repeatedly creates urgency, that pattern matters. Patterns reveal strategy. Strategy reveals manipulation. When you see these patterns clearly, your response changes. You stop reacting automatically. You become thoughtful. Thoughtfulness removes emotional leverage. Another protection is curiosity. Instead of reacting immediately, ask questions. Questions slow manipulation. Questions expose contradictions. Questions return control to you. Another important part of mastering manipulation is avoiding unnecessary conflict. You do not always need to confront manipulation directly. Sometimes calm distance works better. You reduce engagement. You limit emotional investment. Distance removes the reward manipulators seek. Another powerful skill is emotional independence. When your emotional state does not depend on others, manipulation loses power. Manipulators rely on emotional hooks. If the hook does not catch, the influence disappears. Emotional independence grows from self-awareness. You recognize your emotional triggers. You understand your needs. You take responsibility for your reactions. This responsibility creates strength. Mastering human nature does not mean controlling others. It means controlling yourself. When you understand manipulation, you become harder to influence unfairly. You respond with clarity. You maintain calm. You choose your actions consciously. And when you remain aware and grounded, manipulation loses its power over you. Chapter 4. The Art of Reading People Without Them Realizing. Most people reveal far more than they intend to. Not through their words, but through their behavior. Human communication is not limited to speech. Tone, posture, pauses, and small reactions often tell a deeper story. Learning to read these signals is one of the most powerful skills in mastering human nature. When you observe carefully, you begin to see patterns others miss. People rarely control their behavior perfectly. Even when they try to hide emotions, small signals appear. These signals are subtle: a hesitation before answering, a quick change in facial expression, a shift in posture. These moments reveal internal thoughts. Many people overlook these details because they focus only on words. Words can be controlled. Behavior is harder to control. The body often reacts before the mind has time to hide it. This is why observation is so powerful. To read people effectively, the first step is attention. Attention means slowing down your mental pace. Instead of thinking about what you will say next, you observe. Notice the rhythm of someone's speech. Notice how quickly they respond. Notice when their tone changes. These small details create a pattern. Patterns reveal emotional states. For example, when people feel comfortable, their behavior becomes relaxed. Their movements are natural. Their speech flows smoothly. But when someone feels pressure, behavior changes. They may speak faster. They may pause more often. Their tone may tighten. These signals indicate emotional tension. Tension does not always mean deception. It may mean uncertainty. It may mean discomfort. But it always signals that something emotional is happening beneath the surface. Another important signal is consistency. People behave in consistent ways when they feel safe. Their tone, posture, and expressions align. When behavior becomes inconsistent, something has changed. For example, someone may say they agree with you, but their body may lean away. Their voice may sound uncertain. Their expression may appear tense. This mismatch reveals internal conflict. Words say one thing. Behavior suggests another. Reading people means noticing these contradictions. Another useful observation involves eye movement. Eyes naturally move when people think. When someone remembers something, their eyes often move differently than when they imagine something, but eye behavior alone cannot prove dishonesty. Instead, look for patterns. Observe how someone behaves when relaxed. This becomes their baseline. The baseline is the person's natural behavior. Once you know the baseline, changes become noticeable. If someone usually speaks calmly but suddenly speaks rapidly, something has shifted. If someone usually maintains eye contact but suddenly avoids it, something has changed. These changes reveal emotional shifts. Understanding emotional shifts helps you interpret behavior more accurately. Another powerful signal is micro-expressions. Micro-expressions are brief emotional reactions. They appear on the face for a fraction of a second. They happen before the mind has time to control them. For example, someone may briefly show surprise, then quickly return to a calm expression. That brief reaction reveals genuine emotion. Micro-expressions require careful attention to notice, but with practice, they become easier to recognize. Another important signal involves posture. The body often reflects internal emotion. When people feel confident, posture becomes open, their shoulders relax, their movements appear steady. When people feel defensive, posture changes. Arms may cross, shoulders may tighten, movement becomes restricted. These signals often appear without conscious awareness. Another signal is pacing. The speed of someone's speech often reflects their emotional state. Rapid speech may indicate excitement, but it can also indicate anxiety. Slow speech may indicate calm thinking, but it can also indicate hesitation. Context matters. This is why reading people requires observing multiple signals together. One signal alone is rarely enough. Patterns provide stronger understanding. Another powerful signal involves response timing. When people answer quickly, their response may be prepared. When someone pauses longer than usual, they may be thinking carefully. Sometimes hesitation appears when someone feels uncertain. Other times it appears when someone chooses words carefully. The goal is not to judge quickly. The goal is to observe patiently. Patience improves accuracy. Another important element in reading people is emotional empathy. Empathy means sensing emotional energy. You may notice subtle shifts in the atmosphere during conversations. A room may suddenly feel tense. Someone's tone may change slightly. These shifts provide information. Empathy allows you to sense emotional states, even when words remain calm. But empathy requires balance. Too much emotional involvement can cloud perception. Maintain emotional distance. Observe without absorbing every emotion around you. Another skill involves observing reactions to unexpected questions. Unexpected questions interrupt prepared responses. When someone answers an unexpected question, their natural reaction appears. You may see surprise, you may see relief, you may see tension. These reactions reveal emotional authenticity. Another important technique involves silence. Silence often encourages people to reveal more. When you remain quiet, many people feel pressure to fill the space. They continue speaking. They may reveal additional information. Silence is a powerful observational tool. It slows conversations and reveals deeper behavior. Another observation involves how people treat others who hold less power. People often behave differently depending on social status. Someone may act respectful toward authority, but dismissive toward someone with less influence. These behaviors reveal character more clearly than polite words. Character appears in moments when social pressure disappears. Another signal involves emotional alignment. When people genuinely agree, their behavior aligns with their words. Their tone becomes warm. Their body leans slightly forward. Their expressions appear relaxed. When agreement is forced, alignment disappears. Words say yes, but behavior says something else. Another important observation involves emotional leakage. Even when people try to hide feelings, small emotional signals appear. A brief sigh, a tightened jaw, a sudden shift in tone. These signals reveal internal reactions. Reading people requires noticing these moments. Another helpful habit is observing patterns over time. A single moment can be misleading, but repeated behavior reveals deeper truth. Consistency across situations reveals character. For example, someone may appear calm in one situation, but react strongly in others. Patterns across time provide more reliable understanding. Another key principle is avoiding quick conclusions. Reading people is about gathering information. It is not about labeling others immediately. Remain curious. Curiosity improves perception. Judgment narrows perception. Another useful technique involves observing emotional triggers. Every person has emotional triggers. Certain topics create strong reactions. Certain situations create discomfort. When you notice these reactions, you learn about someone's values and fears. This information helps you understand their motivations. Another signal involves enthusiasm. Genuine enthusiasm often appears through energy. The voice becomes animated. The body becomes expressive. Forced enthusiasm feels different. It appears exaggerated or inconsistent. Authentic emotion usually feels natural. Another observation involves listening beyond words. People often reveal meaning indirectly. They hint at concerns. They hint at desires. Careful listening reveals these hints. Another skill involves noticing emotional recovery. How quickly someone returns to calm after tension reveals emotional resilience. Some people recover quickly. Others remain tense longer. These patterns reveal emotional habits. Another important principle is humility. Reading people is a skill that improves with practice, but it never becomes perfect. Remain open to correction. Assumptions can be wrong. Observation works best when combined with patience. Another powerful benefit of reading people is improved communication. When you understand emotional signals, you adjust your behavior. You speak more carefully. You respond more effectively. This creates smoother interactions. Another advantage is protection. When you notice hidden tension or manipulation, you remain calm. You avoid emotional traps. Your awareness becomes your protection. Mastering the art of reading people does not require confrontation. You do not need to expose every observation. Most of the time, quiet awareness is enough. You observe. You understand. You respond thoughtfully. Over time, this skill transforms how you experience conversations. People become less mysterious. Their emotions become clearer. And your ability to navigate human behavior becomes stronger. When observation becomes natural, you begin to see human nature more clearly than most people ever do. Chapter 5. The Power of Self-Control in a World Full of Triggers. Human nature is full of reactions. A comment appears, and emotion follows. A disagreement appears, and tension rises. A small event happens, and suddenly the mind becomes restless. Most people live inside these reactions without noticing them. Something happens, and they respond immediately. They become angry. They become defensive. They become anxious. The reaction feels automatic. But what many people do not realize is that the reaction is not the event itself. The reaction is the mind responding to the event. Between the event and the reaction, there is always a small moment, a brief space. In that small space, choice exists. Most people never notice that space. They move directly from emotion to action. But mastering human nature begins when you learn to recognize that moment. That moment gives you power. Self-control begins there. Self-control does not mean suppressing emotion completely. Emotions are natural. They provide information about what matters to us. But emotions do not always provide wise instructions. Anger may push you to say something harmful. Fear may push you to avoid something important. Jealousy may push you to judge someone unfairly. Without self-control, these emotions guide behavior. With self-control, you observe them before acting. Observation creates distance. Distance reduces intensity, and reduced intensity allows clear thinking. Many people believe self-control requires extreme discipline. They imagine it means becoming cold or emotionally distant. But real self-control is simpler. It begins with awareness. You notice when your emotions begin to rise. You notice tension in your body. You notice changes in your breathing. These signals appear before strong reactions happen. When you recognize them early, you gain time. Time allows you to pause. Pause interrupts automatic reactions. Another important part of self-control is understanding emotional triggers. Every person has triggers. Certain words create irritation. Certain behaviors create frustration. Certain situations create fear. Triggers often come from past experiences. A person who has experienced criticism may react strongly to feedback. A person who has experienced rejection may react strongly to silence. These reactions may appear sudden, but they often connect to deeper emotional memories. When you understand your triggers, you reduce their power. Instead of reacting automatically, you anticipate the emotional response. Anticipation allows preparation. Preparation strengthens self-control. Another important idea is emotional labeling. When emotions appear, name them silently. You might think, "I feel frustrated," or "I feel defensive." Naming emotions creates psychological distance. Distance weakens emotional intensity. This simple practice helps you remain calm. Another helpful technique involves breathing. Breathing affects the nervous system. When breathing becomes rapid, the body signals danger. When breathing slows, the body signals safety. Slow breathing reduces emotional intensity. This creates a calmer internal state. Another powerful element of self-control is patience. Emotional reactions often demand immediate response. Anger wants to speak instantly. Fear wants to escape instantly. But patience allows reflection. Reflection improves decisions. Sometimes the best response is no response. Silence allows emotions to settle. Once the emotional wave passes, thinking becomes clearer. Another important part of self-control involves perspective. When emotions rise, the mind often exaggerates problems. A small disagreement may feel like a personal attack. A delay may feel like rejection. Perspective corrects these exaggerations. Ask yourself simple questions. Will this matter tomorrow? Will this matter next week? Often the answer reduces emotional intensity. Perspective creates calm. Another challenge in self-control involves ego. Ego reacts strongly when identity feels threatened. If someone questions your idea, ego may interpret it as an attack. If someone disagrees, ego may demand defense. But disagreement is not always disrespect. Different perspectives are normal. When ego relaxes, communication improves. Self-control allows you to separate disagreement from identity. Another important skill is emotional endurance. Strong emotions do not last forever, but they often feel permanent in the moment. Learning to sit with emotion builds strength. Instead of escaping discomfort, observe it. Watch how it rises. Watch how it slowly fades. This practice increases emotional resilience. Another common challenge is reacting to provocation. Some people intentionally create emotional reactions. They may criticize. They may mock. They may attempt to provoke anger. Provocation works only when you react emotionally. When you remain calm, provocation loses power. Calm responses frustrate manipulators. They expect emotional reactions. When reactions do not appear, their influence weakens. Another powerful element of self-control is intentional speech. Before speaking, pause briefly. Consider the effect of your words. Will they improve the situation? Will they increase conflict? This short pause often prevents unnecessary arguments. Another useful technique involves reframing. Reframing changes how you interpret events. Instead of viewing criticism as attack, view it as information. Instead of viewing disagreement as hostility, view it as perspective. Reframing reduces emotional threat. Reduced threat supports calm thinking. Another important element of self-control is physical awareness. Emotions appear in the body: tight shoulders, clenched jaw, rapid heartbeat. These signals reveal emotional activation. Relaxing the body can calm the mind. Simple actions like loosening posture and breathing slowly reduce tension. Another challenge involves social pressure. In group situations, emotions spread quickly. If others become angry, you may feel pressure to react the same way, but emotional independence protects you. You do not need to mirror every emotion around you. Your calm presence may even stabilize others. Another important idea is delayed response. Not every message requires an immediate answer. When emotions run high, delay helps. Time restores clarity. Clarity improves communication. Another benefit of self-control is improved relationships. When you remain calm during conflict, trust increases. Others feel safer speaking honestly. Conversations become more productive. Another advantage is mental clarity. Emotional reactions consume energy. Calm thinking conserves it. With self-control, your decisions become more thoughtful. Another important idea is forgiveness. Holding resentment keeps emotions active. Forgiveness releases emotional weight. Forgiveness does not mean accepting harmful behavior. It means freeing yourself from constant emotional reaction. Another challenge in self-control is perfectionism. No one controls emotions perfectly. Occasional reactions are normal. Progress matters more than perfection. Each moment of awareness strengthens the skill. Another helpful habit is reflection. After emotional moments, review your response. What triggered the reaction? How did you respond? What could improve next time? Reflection builds learning. Learning strengthens self-control. Another powerful effect of self-control is influence. Calm people influence environments. When others react emotionally, calm responses create stability. Stability earns respect. Respect increases influence. Another important idea is inner balance. Your inner state shapes your perception of the world. When emotions dominate, perception becomes distorted. When calm dominates, perception becomes clearer. Clear perception improves decision-making. Another benefit of self-control is freedom. When emotions control you, others can manipulate you. When you control your reactions, manipulation loses power. Self-control protects independence. Another important truth is that self-control grows with practice. Each moment of awareness strengthens the skill. Each calm response builds confidence. Over time, emotional reactions lose their intensity. You begin to experience situations differently. Events that once triggered anger now feel manageable. Situations that once created anxiety now feel neutral. This transformation happens gradually. It happens through repeated awareness. Mastering human nature begins with understanding others, but it becomes powerful only when you master yourself. Self-control turns knowledge into strength. It protects your mind from unnecessary conflict. It protects your decisions from emotional pressure. And when you remain calm while others react impulsively, you gain an advantage that most people never develop. Chapter 6. Recognizing the masks people wear. Human beings rarely show their true emotions all the time. In social situations, people wear masks. These masks are not always dishonest. Sometimes they exist to maintain harmony. Sometimes they exist to protect vulnerability, but these masks often hide true intentions. Understanding these masks is an important step in mastering human nature. A mask is a social role. It is the image a person presents to the world. The friendly mask, the confident mask, the humble mask, the strong mask. Each mask serves a purpose. People use them to control how others see them. When you understand these masks, behavior becomes easier to interpret. One common mask is the mask of confidence. Some people appear extremely confident. They speak loudly. They speak with certainty. They rarely admit doubt. To observers, this behavior may appear strong, but sometimes this mask hides insecurity. The person fears being perceived as weak, so they exaggerate confidence. True confidence behaves differently. It allows uncertainty. It allows listening. It allows learning. When you observe carefully, the difference becomes clear. Another common mask is the mask of friendliness. A person may appear very warm. They smile frequently. They agree with everyone. They avoid disagreement. This behavior can come from genuine kindness, but sometimes it hides a deeper intention. The person may seek approval constantly. They may fear rejection, so they maintain constant friendliness. This mask can create confusion, because hidden frustration may exist beneath it. When frustration accumulates, sudden emotional reactions may appear. Another mask is the mask of indifference. Some people behave as if nothing affects them. They appear calm and detached. They show little emotional reaction. To others, this may appear strong, but sometimes this mask hides emotional protection. The person may fear vulnerability. They may avoid showing feelings because they have been hurt before. Indifference becomes a shield. Understanding this mask helps you interpret emotional distance. Another mask is the mask of humor. Humor is powerful in social situations. Many people use humor to manage uncomfortable emotions. A person may joke constantly. They may turn serious conversations into light moments. This behavior can be enjoyable, but sometimes humor hides discomfort. When topics become emotionally sensitive, humor becomes a way to avoid them. Recognizing this pattern helps you see when humor is protective. Another mask is the mask of authority. Some people project authority strongly. They speak in commands. They expect obedience. This behavior may appear natural in leadership roles, But sometimes authority masks insecurity. The person fears losing control, so they reinforce authority through dominance. True leadership behaves differently. True leadership balances authority with respect. Observation reveals the difference. Another common mask is the mask of victimhood. Some people present themselves as constantly misunderstood. They describe themselves as treated unfairly. They highlight their difficulties repeatedly. This behavior attracts sympathy, but sometimes victimhood becomes a strategy. By appearing powerless, the person gains emotional influence. Others feel responsible for their comfort. This dynamic can create emotional imbalance. Understanding the victim mask helps you maintain perspective. Another mask involves intellectual superiority. Some people emphasize intelligence constantly. They correct others frequently. They display knowledge in every conversation. This behavior may appear impressive, but sometimes it hides insecurity. The person may believe their value depends on appearing knowledgeable, so they reinforce intellectual dominance. Another mask is the mask of perfection. Some people try to appear flawless. They avoid showing mistakes. They maintain control over every detail. This behavior may create admiration, but perfection often hides fear of judgment. The person fears criticism, so they maintain a carefully controlled image. Understanding this mask allows compassion. Perfectionism often carries internal pressure. Another mask is the mask of busyness. Some people constantly appear busy. They emphasize how much work they have. They rush through conversations. Busyness may be genuine, but sometimes it hides emotional avoidance. Staying busy prevents deeper reflection. It prevents uncomfortable conversations. Busyness becomes an escape. Another mask involves exaggerated humility. Some people minimize their achievements constantly. They deny praise quickly. This behavior may appear modest, but sometimes it hides desire for validation. The person may hope others will reassure them. Humility becomes indirect attention-seeking. Understanding this dynamic prevents misunderstanding. Another mask involves emotional strength. Some people present themselves as unbreakable. They claim that nothing affects them. They dismiss emotional struggles, but emotional suppression often hides vulnerability. Every person experiences emotional pain. When emotions are suppressed, they appear in other ways: irritability, distance, fatigue. Recognizing emotional suppression helps you understand hidden struggles. Another important mask involves social adaptation. People behave differently in different environments. At work, they may appear professional. With friends, they may appear relaxed. With family, they may appear emotional. These differences are natural. Humans adapt to social expectations, but extreme differences between environments can reveal hidden stress. Observation of these differences reveals emotional pressures. Understanding masks does not mean judging people harshly. Masks exist because humans seek safety. Social environments create pressure. People adapt to survive socially. The goal is not to expose every mask. The goal is awareness. When you recognize masks, you understand behavior more clearly. Another important principle is noticing emotional leakage. Even when masks remain strong, small signals appear. A brief hesitation, a sudden change in tone, a moment of silence. These moments reveal the real emotion behind the mask. Observation allows you to notice these signals. Another helpful skill is patience. Masks often remain strong during short conversations, but longer observation reveals patterns. Over time, people reveal their authentic behavior. Patterns reveal authenticity. Another important skill is neutrality. When you observe masks, remain calm. Do not confront every hidden emotion. Confrontation can create defensiveness. Quiet awareness is often more effective. Another useful approach is empathy. Recognizing masks allows compassion. Behind every mask exists a human need: the need for safety, the need for recognition, the need for belonging. Understanding these needs improves communication. Another benefit of recognizing masks is protection. When you see beyond appearances, manipulation becomes easier to detect. A friendly mask may hide pressure. A confident mask may hide insecurity. Awareness allows you to respond wisely. Another advantage is improved relationships. When you understand the emotional reasons behind behavior, patience grows. Misunderstandings decrease. Another important idea is self-reflection. You also wear masks. Everyone does. Sometimes you appear confident while feeling uncertain. Sometimes you appear calm while feeling stressed. Recognizing your own masks increases self-awareness. Self-awareness strengthens emotional honesty. Another truth about masks is that they are not permanent. When people feel safe, masks soften. Authentic behavior appears naturally. Safety encourages authenticity. Your calm presence may help others feel safe enough to remove their masks. This creates deeper connections. Mastering human nature requires seeing beyond appearances. Words tell part of the story. Behavior tells another. But masks often hide the deeper truth. When you observe carefully, you begin to see the emotions and motivations that exist beneath the surface. And when you understand those hidden layers, human behavior becomes far easier to navigate. Chapter 7. Understanding Power, Status and Social Influence. Human beings are deeply affected by power and status. Even when people claim that status does not matter, their behavior often reveals something different. In every social environment, invisible hierarchies exist. These hierarchies appear in families, workplaces, friendships, and communities. They shape how people speak. They shape who listens. They shape who feels confident and who feels cautious. Understanding these social forces is essential for mastering human nature. Power does not always appear through authority or position. Sometimes power appears quietly. A person who influences group decisions holds power. A person whose approval others seek holds power. A person whose presence changes the atmosphere holds power. Power often hides behind behavior. One important aspect of social power is status. Status reflects how much value a group places on someone. People constantly observe status signals. They notice who speaks first. They notice who interrupts. They notice who receives attention. These signals create social expectations. High-status individuals often feel comfortable speaking. Low-status individuals may hesitate. But status is not fixed. Status shifts depending on the environment. A person may hold high status at work, but low status in a different social setting. Understanding this flexibility helps you avoid false assumptions. Another important factor is perceived confidence. People often interpret calm behavior as authority. When someone speaks slowly and clearly, others tend to listen. But when someone appears uncertain, others may ignore their message. Confidence affects perception. This does not mean you must dominate conversations. True influence often comes from calm presence rather than loud speech. Another powerful social force is attention. Attention acts like social currency. When people pay attention to someone, that person gains influence. When attention disappears, influence weakens. This explains why some individuals seek attention constantly. They may speak frequently. They may tell dramatic stories. Attention reinforces status. But attention alone does not create respect. Respect grows from consistency. When behavior aligns with values, trust appears. Trust strengthens influence. Another important element in social dynamics is validation. Humans naturally want recognition. They want their ideas acknowledged. They want their presence appreciated. When validation appears, cooperation increases. When validation disappears, resistance may appear. Understanding this dynamic improves communication. Acknowledging someone's contribution can reduce tension. Validation does not mean agreement. It simply shows that you heard them. Another powerful force is group identity. People strongly identify with groups. Family groups, professional groups, cultural groups. These identities influence behavior. People often defend their group, even when the group is wrong. Group loyalty creates emotional attachment. This attachment can override logic. Understanding group identity helps explain many conflicts. Arguments may appear logical, but beneath them lies emotional loyalty. Another important element in social influence is reputation. Reputation shapes how people interpret your actions. If someone is known as reliable, others trust their words. If someone is known as careless, others doubt them. Reputation builds slowly, but it can change quickly through repeated behavior. Consistency protects reputation. Another important social factor is comparison. Humans constantly compare themselves with others. Comparison influences self-esteem. It influences ambition. It influences behavior. When someone feels inferior in a group, insecurity may appear. When someone feels superior, arrogance may appear. Recognizing these reactions helps you understand group behavior. Another powerful force is authority. People tend to respect authority figures automatically. Authority signals expertise or leadership. But authority can influence behavior even when expertise is limited. This effect appears in many environments. People often follow instructions simply because they come from someone with authority. Understanding this tendency protects you from blind obedience. Respect authority, but think independently. Another social pattern involves emotional leadership. Some individuals shape the emotional atmosphere of a group. If they remain calm, the group often becomes calm. If they become anxious, tension spreads. Emotions are contagious. Emotional leaders influence the group without formal authority. You can develop this influence through emotional stability. Another important concept is social pressure. People often change behavior to fit group expectations. They may agree with ideas they privately doubt. They may stay silent to avoid conflict. This behavior appears in many group situations. Social pressure can weaken independent thinking. Recognizing this pressure helps you maintain clarity. Another element in social dynamics is reciprocity. Reciprocity is the instinct to return favors. If someone helps you, you often feel a desire to help them. This instinct strengthens relationships, but it can also be used for influence. Some people provide small favors to create obligation. Later they request something larger. Awareness of reciprocity protects you from manipulation. Another important factor is emotional credibility. People trust those who appear emotionally stable. When someone reacts calmly under pressure, others feel safe. Safety increases trust. Trust increases influence. This is why emotional self-control strengthens leadership. Another social dynamic involves communication style. Direct communication often signals confidence. Indirect communication may signal caution. Different cultures value different styles. Understanding these differences improves cross-cultural communication. Another important element is listening. People who listen carefully gain respect. Listening shows attention. Attention creates connection. Connection strengthens influence. Many people attempt to influence others by speaking more, but listening often creates stronger influence. Another social pattern involves conflict behavior. During conflict, people often reveal their priorities. Some individuals prioritize harmony. They avoid disagreement. Others prioritize dominance. They escalate conflict quickly. Understanding these patterns helps you navigate difficult conversations. Another powerful element of influence is patience. Impatient people often reveal their intentions too quickly. Patient observers gather more information. Information strengthens decision-making. Another factor is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence means recognizing emotional signals. It means responding with awareness. People with strong emotional intelligence navigate social dynamics smoothly. They recognize tension early. They adjust communication carefully. Another social element is humility. Humility attracts trust. When someone admits mistakes, credibility increases. Arrogance often creates distance. Humility invites cooperation. Another important concept is adaptability. Rigid behavior struggles in changing environments. Flexible behavior adapts easily. Adaptability increases influence because it responds to circumstances. Another powerful social skill is strategic silence. Silence often encourages others to reveal more. When you pause, people fill the space. They may share additional information. Silence creates insight. Another element in social dynamics is timing. Timing influences effectiveness. Speaking at the right moment increases impact. Speaking too early or too late reduces influence. Observation improves timing. Another important idea is emotional balance. Strong emotions may weaken credibility. Balanced emotions strengthen it. Balance creates stability. Stability attracts trust. Another social factor involves curiosity. Curiosity invites dialogue. It shows openness. People respond positively to curiosity. Curiosity encourages honest conversation. Another key concept is presence. Presence means being fully attentive during interaction. When someone feels fully heard, trust grows. Trust builds influence. Another powerful skill is observation without judgment. Judgment narrows perception. Observation expands understanding. Neutral observation reveals patterns others miss. Another important idea is integrity. Integrity aligns actions with values. When behavior remains consistent with values, respect increases. Respect creates influence naturally. Mastering social influence does not require manipulation. True influence grows from awareness. Awareness of power, awareness of status, awareness of emotional dynamics. When you understand these forces, social behavior becomes clearer. You respond more thoughtfully. You communicate more effectively. And you navigate social environments with greater confidence and independence. Chapter 8. The Psychology of First Impressions. First impressions form faster than most people realize. Within a few seconds of meeting someone, the human mind begins making judgments. These judgments happen quietly and automatically. People notice posture. They notice tone of voice. They notice eye contact. From these small signals, the brain begins forming a story. This story becomes the first impression. First impressions are powerful because they influence how future behavior is interpreted. When someone creates a positive first impression, others tend to interpret their actions more kindly. When someone creates a negative first impression, their actions may be judged more critically. Understanding this psychological process helps you navigate social situations more wisely. The mind forms first impressions for a simple reason. Humans evolved in environments where quick judgments helped survival. Early humans needed to decide quickly whether someone was friend or threat. Although modern life is different, the brain still uses this fast evaluation system. The result is quick judgment. These judgments are not always accurate, but they influence behavior strongly. One of the most important elements of first impressions is body language. Body language communicates emotional signals before words appear. When someone enters a room with relaxed posture and steady movement, others often interpret this as confidence. When someone enters with tense posture and hesitant movement, others may interpret uncertainty. These signals appear before conversation begins. Another important element is eye contact. Eye contact signals attention and presence. When someone maintains calm eye contact, it creates a sense of connection. But eye contact should feel natural. Excessive staring can feel uncomfortable. Balanced eye contact communicates confidence and respect. Another factor in first impressions is facial expression. Human beings naturally respond to emotional signals in faces. A relaxed expression signals openness. A tense expression may signal stress or discomfort. People instinctively mirror these signals. When someone appears calm and approachable, others feel more comfortable. Another powerful element is tone of voice. Tone often communicates more than words. A steady tone signals emotional balance. A rushed tone may signal anxiety. A flat tone may signal disinterest. People notice these subtle differences quickly. The pace of speech also affects first impressions. When someone speaks calmly and clearly, listeners feel comfortable. But rapid speech can create pressure. Slowing speech slightly often improves perception. Another important factor is attentiveness. People quickly notice whether someone is truly present. If someone listens carefully and responds thoughtfully, others feel valued. If someone appears distracted, the connection weakens. Attention builds trust from the beginning. Another important element is authenticity. People often sense when behavior feels forced. Artificial friendliness may feel unnatural, but genuine interest creates warmth. Authenticity strengthens positive impressions. Another powerful factor is emotional stability. When someone appears calm, others feel safe. Safety creates trust. Trust strengthens social connections. This is why emotional self-control improves first impressions. Another important element is respect. Respect appears through simple actions. Listening without interrupting. Acknowledging others' ideas. Showing appreciation. Respect signals emotional maturity. Another psychological factor in first impressions is similarity. People tend to feel comfortable with individuals who seem similar to them. Shared interests create connection. Shared experiences create understanding. Recognizing small similarities helps build rapport. Another powerful factor is curiosity. Curiosity signals openness. When someone asks thoughtful questions, conversation deepens. Curiosity shifts attention toward the other person. This creates positive engagement. Another important element is humility. Humility reduces social tension. When someone appears humble, others feel less defensive. Humility invites cooperation. Another psychological effect in first impressions is confirmation bias. Once people form an initial impression, they often search for evidence that supports it. If they believe someone is trustworthy, they interpret behavior positively. If they believe someone is unreliable, they interpret behavior negatively. This bias explains why first impressions can persist even when evidence changes. Understanding this effect encourages careful observation. Another important factor is consistency. When behavior remains consistent with the first impression, trust grows. But when behavior suddenly changes, confusion appears. Consistency strengthens credibility. Another psychological influence involves emotional energy. Every person carries emotional energy into a room. Calm energy creates stability. Anxious energy spreads tension. Your emotional state affects how others experience you. Managing emotional energy improves impressions naturally. Another powerful element is appearance. Appearance communicates signals about personality and attention to detail. Clean and organized appearance often suggests reliability, but appearance alone does not define character. Behavior confirms or challenges initial assumptions. Another factor is listening ability. People remember how they felt during conversations. When someone listens deeply, others feel respected. This emotional memory shapes impressions strongly. Another psychological element involves pacing. Matching the pace of conversation improves comfort. When communication rhythms align, connection strengthens. This subtle synchronization builds rapport. Another powerful tool in shaping first impressions is kindness. Kindness communicates warmth and emotional intelligence. Small gestures of kindness create lasting impact. Another important concept is openness. Open communication encourages honesty. When someone feels safe sharing thoughts, connection deepens. Another psychological factor is presence. Presence means being fully engaged in the moment. When someone feels fully seen and heard, trust grows. Presence cannot be faked easily. It requires genuine attention. Another important element is confidence balanced with respect. Confidence without respect feels arrogant. Respect without confidence feels uncertain. Balanced behavior creates credibility. Another factor is emotional awareness. Understanding emotional cues allows you to adjust behavior appropriately. If someone appears nervous, a calm response helps. If someone appears enthusiastic, shared enthusiasm strengthens connection. Another important element is patience. First impressions improve when conversations unfold naturally. Rushing interactions creates pressure. Patience allows genuine connection to develop. Another psychological effect involves memory. People remember emotional experiences more than specific words. If someone feels comfortable and respected, the memory becomes positive. Positive emotional memory strengthens relationships. Another powerful principle is simplicity. Clear communication improves impressions. Complex or confusing speech can create uncertainty. Clarity builds trust. Another important factor is reliability. When people keep promises, credibility grows. Reliability strengthens impressions over time. Another psychological element is emotional resonance. When someone shares emotion sincerely, others respond empathetically. Emotional resonance builds connection quickly. Another key idea is that first impressions are not permanent. Over time, consistent behavior reshapes perceptions. But changing a negative first impression requires effort. This is why awareness during first meetings is valuable. Another powerful skill is adaptability. Different environments require different behavior. Adaptability improves social navigation. Another important principle is calm observation. While forming impressions of others, remain aware that they are forming impressions of you. Mutual perception shapes interaction. Another psychological insight is that people appreciate feeling understood. Understanding builds connection faster than trying to impress. Another important idea is sincerity. Sincerity creates trust naturally. People often sense when behavior is genuine. Authenticity strengthens social relationships. Another valuable habit is reflection. After meeting someone, reflect briefly. What signals did you notice? What emotions appeared? Reflection strengthens awareness. Another powerful truth is that impressions work both ways. You are also forming impressions of others. Observation helps you evaluate character. When you understand the psychology behind first impressions, you become more aware of subtle signals that shape human interaction. This awareness allows you to present yourself with calm authenticity, and it helps you see beyond appearances when meeting others. Chapter 9. Why people act against their own interest. Human behavior is not always logical. Many people believe they make decisions based on reason. They believe their actions follow careful thought, but often people act in ways that contradict their own interests. They make choices that harm their goals. They defend ideas that limit their growth. They repeat habits that create problems. This behavior can seem confusing, but when you understand human psychology, it becomes clearer. One major reason people act against their own interests is emotional comfort. The human mind prefers emotional comfort over long-term improvement. Even when people know a better choice exists, they often choose the familiar option. Familiar patterns feel safe. New choices feel uncertain. Uncertainty creates discomfort. So people return to familiar behavior. Another reason involves fear of change. Change requires effort. It requires leaving known environments. It requires facing uncertainty. Even positive change can feel threatening because it disrupts established habits. Habits shape daily behavior. Once habits form, the brain prefers to repeat them. Breaking habits requires conscious effort. Many people avoid this effort. As a result, they continue behaviors that no longer serve them. Another powerful force is identity. People create stories about who they are. They believe certain things about themselves. They may believe they are not capable of change. They may believe they are unlucky. They may believe they are always misunderstood. Once these identities form, behavior often follows them. A person who believes they always fail may stop trying. A person who believes others are against them may become defensive. Identity shapes perception. Perception shapes decisions. Another reason people act against their interests is emotional loyalty. Humans form strong emotional bonds with familiar environments. These environments may include family traditions, social groups, or workplace cultures. Even when these environments are unhealthy, people remain loyal to them. Leaving may feel like betrayal, so individuals continue behaviors that maintain group approval. Another psychological factor involves immediate rewards. The brain responds strongly to short-term pleasure. Long-term benefits often feel distant. For example, healthy habits may create long-term improvement, but unhealthy habits may create immediate pleasure. The mind naturally focuses on immediate experiences. This bias toward the present moment influences many decisions. Another reason involves social pressure. People often adjust behavior to match the expectations of those around them. Even when individuals privately disagree, they may follow group behavior. This effect appears in many social environments. People prefer belonging over disagreement. Belonging creates safety. Disagreement may create conflict. Another psychological factor involves emotional reactions. Strong emotions can override careful thinking. Anger may push someone to make a decision quickly. Fear may push someone to avoid a necessary challenge. Jealousy may push someone to compete in unhealthy ways. When emotions become intense, rational thinking weakens. Understanding emotional influence helps explain many surprising behaviors. Another reason involves mental shortcuts. The brain prefers simple explanations. Complex thinking requires effort, so people rely on quick assumptions. These assumptions sometimes lead to mistakes. A person may believe a rumor without checking evidence. A person may judge someone quickly based on appearance. Mental shortcuts save time, but they can also mislead. Another factor involves pride. Pride can make people resist admitting mistakes. When someone commits to a decision publicly, changing that decision may feel embarrassing, so they continue defending the original choice. Even when evidence shows the decision was wrong, pride protects self-image, but it can prevent growth. Another psychological force involves emotional attachment. People attach emotional meaning to certain beliefs. These beliefs become part of identity. When beliefs are challenged, people may react strongly. The challenge feels personal. Instead of reconsidering the belief, they defend it more strongly. This behavior appears in many social debates. Another factor is fear of judgment. People worry about how others will view them. This fear can influence decisions strongly. Someone may avoid pursuing a dream because they fear criticism. Someone may stay in an unhappy situation to avoid social judgment. Fear of judgment can prevent positive change. Another important reason involves past experiences. Past failures can shape expectations. If someone has failed in a certain area before, they may expect failure again. This expectation influences behavior. They may avoid opportunities. Avoidance prevents new experiences, and the pattern continues. Another psychological factor is emotional fatigue. When people experience prolonged stress, decision-making becomes harder. Mental energy decreases. Simple choices may feel overwhelming. During these moments, people often choose the easiest option. The easiest option is not always the best one. Another reason involves misunderstanding long-term consequences. Many decisions involve delayed results. People may underestimate the impact of small habits. Small choices repeated daily create powerful outcomes. But the mind often ignores slow changes. Immediate events receive more attention. Another powerful factor is comfort with familiar identity. Even when identity creates limitations, it still feels known. Changing identity requires redefining how someone sees themselves. This process can feel uncomfortable, so people remain within familiar roles. Another reason involves emotional narratives. Humans create stories about their lives. These stories explain events, but sometimes the stories become limiting. A person may believe that success belongs to others. They may believe they are destined for difficulty. When these stories become strong, behavior aligns with them. Another factor is resistance to uncertainty. Uncertainty creates anxiety. Predictable situations feel safer. Even if the predictable situation is unpleasant, predictability reduces mental effort. Another psychological force is the need for control. Some people prefer controlling small aspects of their environment rather than facing larger challenges. This behavior may create temporary stability, but it can also prevent growth. Another factor involves emotional attachment to effort already invested. People may continue a path because they have already spent time or energy on it, even when the path is no longer beneficial. Admitting the investment was misplaced can feel painful, so they continue. Another reason involves misinterpreting temporary setbacks. A single failure may be interpreted as permanent limitation. Instead of viewing failure as feedback, people may see it as proof of inability. This interpretation reduces motivation. Another psychological force involves distraction. Modern environments provide constant stimulation. Distraction prevents reflection. Without reflection, people repeat patterns unconsciously. Awareness requires quiet observation. Another factor is lack of self-awareness. Many people do not regularly examine their behavior. Without reflection, patterns remain invisible. Self-awareness reveals these patterns. Once patterns become visible, change becomes possible. Another reason involves emotional avoidance. Certain decisions require facing uncomfortable emotions. People may delay these decisions. Avoidance feels easier in the short term, but it often increases difficulty later. Another powerful factor involves comparison. When people constantly compare themselves with others, they may feel discouraged. Discouragement reduces motivation. Without motivation, progress slows. Another important factor is belief in fixed ability. Some people believe their abilities cannot improve. This belief reduces effort. Without effort, improvement becomes impossible. Understanding these psychological forces changes how you view human behavior. Actions that once seemed irrational become understandable. People are not always guided by logic. They are guided by emotions, identity, habits, and social pressure. When you recognize these influences, you develop patience. You also develop awareness of your own decisions. Mastering human nature includes understanding how easily the mind can follow familiar patterns. When you become aware of these patterns, you gain the ability to question them. This awareness protects you from repeating harmful cycles, and it helps you make decisions based on clarity rather than emotional impulse. Chapter 10. Protecting your mind from emotional manipulation. Human beings influence each other constantly. Sometimes this influence is healthy. Advice helps people grow. Encouragement builds confidence. Support strengthens relationships, but not all influence is healthy. Some influence targets emotions in order to control decisions. This is emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation does not always appear obvious. It often appears through subtle behavior. A person may create guilt. A person may create fear. A person may create confusion. These emotional reactions weaken independent thinking. Understanding emotional manipulation helps you protect your mind. One of the most common tools of emotional manipulation is guilt. Guilt can be powerful because people want to see themselves as good. When someone suggests that you are selfish or unfair, guilt appears quickly. A manipulator may remind you of past favors. They may describe how disappointed they feel. They may say that your decision will hurt them deeply. The goal is not honest communication. The goal is emotional pressure. When guilt becomes intense, people often change their decisions simply to remove the uncomfortable feeling. Recognizing guilt manipulation helps you pause. Instead of reacting immediately, you observe the emotion. Observation reduces its power. Another powerful tool of manipulation is fear. Fear creates urgency. When people feel afraid, they want to resolve the situation quickly. A manipulator may exaggerate consequences. They may describe negative outcomes repeatedly. They may suggest that refusing their request will create serious problems. Fear narrows attention. When attention narrows, careful thinking decreases. Slowing down is one of the best defenses against fear manipulation. Time allows emotional intensity to decrease. Another common manipulation technique is confusion. Some people overwhelm conversations with complex explanations. They speak rapidly. They change topics frequently. The goal is to create mental fatigue. When someone becomes confused, they doubt their own understanding. Doubt weakens confidence. Confidence protects independence. So confusion becomes a powerful manipulation tool. When conversations become confusing, clarity becomes essential. Ask simple questions. Slow the conversation. Request clear explanations. Clarity restores mental balance. Another form of manipulation is emotional exaggeration. A manipulator may react dramatically to small events. They may express intense disappointment or anger. These strong reactions create emotional pressure. Others may attempt to calm the situation quickly. In doing so, they may agree to something they normally would refuse. Recognizing emotional exaggeration helps you remain calm. Calm responses reduce the effectiveness of dramatic reactions. Another manipulation method involves selective kindness. A person may behave warmly most of the time. They may show support and appreciation, but when they want something, their behavior changes. Kindness becomes conditional. This creates emotional dependency. The person begins to value the approval of the manipulator. When approval becomes important, influence increases. Recognizing conditional kindness protects your independence. Another technique involves creating urgency. A manipulator may say a decision must happen immediately. They may say there is no time to think. Urgency pressures people to act without reflection. But thoughtful decisions require time. When someone pushes for immediate answers, consider slowing the situation. Time weakens manipulation. Another emotional tactic is comparison. A manipulator may compare you with others. They may say others are more helpful. They may suggest that refusing their request will make you appear selfish. Comparison creates insecurity. Insecurity weakens confidence. Confidence supports independent thinking. When comparison appears, return to your values rather than external approval. Another form of manipulation involves playing the victim. A person may present themselves as constantly misunderstood. They may describe themselves as unfairly treated. This behavior attracts sympathy. Sympathy creates emotional responsibility. Others may feel obligated to help, but compassion should not remove personal boundaries. You can care about someone without sacrificing your independence. Another powerful manipulation technique is emotional projection. A manipulator may accuse you of behaviors they are doing themselves. They may say you are selfish when they are demanding. They may say you are unfair when they are manipulating. Projection creates confusion. When someone accuses you unfairly, you may focus on defending yourself. While you defend, the manipulator shifts the conversation. Recognizing projection helps you maintain clarity. Instead of reacting emotionally, observe the pattern. Another emotional tactic is silent pressure. Some manipulators do not argue openly. Instead, they withdraw attention. They become distant. They create emotional discomfort through silence. Others may feel pressure to restore harmony. In doing so, they may give in to demands. Understanding silent pressure helps you remain calm. Silence does not require immediate resolution. Another manipulation method involves flattery. Praise feels pleasant. When someone praises your intelligence or kindness, emotional openness increases. Soon after the praise, a request may appear. The praise softens resistance. Recognizing this sequence helps maintain awareness. Genuine appreciation exists. But when praise appears immediately before requests, consider the context carefully. Another powerful defense against emotional manipulation is emotional awareness. When emotions appear strongly, pause. Ask yourself what emotion you feel: guilt, fear, pressure. Naming emotions reduces their intensity. Another defense is patience. Manipulation often depends on speed. When you slow down, emotional pressure decreases. Time restores clear thinking. Another important protection is boundaries. Boundaries define what behavior you accept. When boundaries remain clear, manipulation becomes difficult. You can respond calmly without explaining excessively. Calm responses protect independence. Another helpful skill is asking questions. Questions interrupt manipulation patterns. Questions encourage clarity. When someone makes a request, ask for details. Ask about alternatives. Questions shift the conversation toward reasoning rather than emotion. Another powerful protection is self-trust. When you trust your judgment, external pressure weakens. Manipulators often target uncertainty. Confidence protects your decisions. Another important idea is emotional balance. Strong emotions create vulnerability. Calm thinking protects independence. Practicing calm responses strengthens this skill. Another helpful habit is reflection. After difficult interactions, review what happened, what emotions appeared, what techniques were used. Reflection strengthens awareness. Another important protection is emotional independence. Your emotional state should not depend entirely on others. When you rely on external approval, manipulation becomes easier. When you maintain inner balance, influence weakens. Another valuable principle is simplicity. Clear decisions reduce manipulation opportunities. When your values are clear, decisions become easier. Another powerful defense is recognizing patterns. Manipulation rarely appears only once. It often repeats. When you notice repeated emotional pressure, awareness increases. Awareness reduces vulnerability. Another important idea is compassion with boundaries. Understanding someone's struggles does not require accepting harmful behavior. You can show empathy while protecting your independence. Another powerful habit is calm observation. Observe behavior without immediate reaction. Observation reveals patterns. Patterns reveal intentions. Another useful skill is emotional distance. Distance allows perspective. Perspective protects clarity. Another important principle is independence of thought. Listen to others. Consider their perspectives, but make decisions based on your values. Another powerful benefit of understanding emotional manipulation is confidence. When you recognize these techniques, emotional pressure loses its effect. You remain calm. You respond thoughtfully. You protect your choices. Mastering human nature does not mean controlling others. It means protecting your mind from unnecessary influence. When your mind remains calm and aware, emotional manipulation loses its power, and your decisions remain truly your own. Chapter 11. Developing emotional intelligence to understand people deeply. Human behavior becomes much clearer when you understand emotions. Emotions influence nearly every decision people make. They shape reactions, relationships, and communication. Yet many people move through life without understanding their own emotions. They feel anger, but do not know why. They feel anxiety, but cannot explain the source. Without emotional awareness, behavior becomes reactive. Emotional intelligence changes this pattern. Emotional intelligence means recognizing emotions in yourself and others. It means understanding how emotions influence behavior. And it means responding thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. Developing this ability is essential for mastering human nature. The first step in emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Self-awareness means noticing your emotional state. When emotions appear, you recognize them. You notice changes in your body. Your breathing may become faster. Your muscles may become tense. Your thoughts may become more intense. These signals indicate emotional activity. Recognizing them early helps you remain calm. Self-awareness also includes understanding emotional triggers. Certain situations create predictable reactions. Criticism may trigger defensiveness. Rejection may trigger sadness. Pressure may trigger anxiety. When you understand your triggers, you can prepare for them. Preparation reduces emotional surprise. Another important aspect of emotional intelligence is emotional regulation. Regulation does not mean suppressing emotion. It means managing emotional intensity. Strong emotions can cloud judgment. When emotions rise, pause before responding. This pause gives your mind time to process the situation. Breathing slowly can also help regulate emotions. Calm breathing signals safety to the body. When the body relaxes, thinking becomes clearer. Another important element of emotional intelligence is empathy. Empathy means recognizing the emotional experiences of others. When someone speaks, they communicate more than information. They communicate feelings. Tone of voice, facial expressions, and posture reveal emotional states. When you observe these signals, you gain insight into their perspective. Empathy improves communication. When people feel understood, they become more open. They share more information. This openness strengthens relationships. Another powerful skill is emotional listening. Listening goes beyond hearing words. It involves noticing emotional meaning. For example, someone may say they are fine, but their tone may sound tired. Their posture may appear tense. Emotional listening recognizes these signals. You respond not only to words, but also to feelings. Another important element of emotional intelligence is curiosity. Curiosity encourages understanding. Instead of judging behavior quickly, You ask questions. Why might this person feel this way? What situation may be influencing their reaction? Curiosity expands perception. Another important skill involves recognizing emotional patterns. People often repeat emotional reactions. Some individuals respond to stress with anger. Others respond with withdrawal. These patterns reveal emotional habits. When you observe patterns, you understand behavior more clearly. Another important aspect of emotional intelligence is emotional patience. Emotions often pass quickly if you allow time, but reacting immediately can intensify them. Patience allows emotions to settle. Settled emotions lead to better decisions. Another important skill is emotional perspective. Strong emotions often exaggerate situations. A small disagreement may feel like a personal attack. A delay may feel like rejection. Perspective corrects these exaggerations. Ask yourself if the situation will matter tomorrow. This question reduces emotional intensity. Another valuable element is compassion. Compassion recognizes that everyone experiences emotional challenges. People struggle with insecurity. They struggle with fear. They struggle with disappointment. When you recognize these struggles, patience increases. Compassion improves communication. Another powerful skill is emotional boundaries. Understanding others' emotions does not mean absorbing them. If someone feels angry, you do not need to become angry. If someone feels anxious, you do not need to adopt their anxiety. Maintaining emotional boundaries protects your stability. Another important aspect is recognizing emotional contagion. Emotions spread quickly between people. A tense person may influence the mood of a group. A calm person may create relaxation. Your emotional state affects those around you. Managing your emotions influences the emotional environment. Another important skill is emotional honesty. Honesty means acknowledging feelings without exaggeration. When you communicate emotions clearly, misunderstandings decrease. Clear communication strengthens relationships. Another key element of emotional intelligence is adaptability. Different people respond differently to emotional signals. Some prefer direct communication. Others prefer gentle conversation. Observing these preferences improves interaction. Another powerful habit is reflection. After conversations, consider what emotions appeared. How did you respond? What signals did you notice? Reflection strengthens emotional awareness. Another important element is humility. No one understands emotions perfectly. Misinterpretations can happen. Remaining open to correction improves understanding. Another key skill is emotional balance. Balance means recognizing emotions without allowing them to dominate. Balanced responses create stability. Stability builds trust. Another important element is consistency. When emotional responses remain steady over time, others feel safe. Predictable behavior strengthens relationships. Another valuable skill is gratitude. Recognizing positive experiences improves emotional resilience. Gratitude shifts attention from problems to possibilities. Another powerful element is emotional courage. Some conversations require honesty. Avoiding emotional topics can create distance. Addressing them respectfully builds stronger connections. Another important concept is emotional maturity. Maturity means accepting responsibility for your reactions. Blaming others for every emotion reduces personal growth. Taking responsibility strengthens self-control. Another key skill is emotional curiosity. Instead of fearing emotions, explore them. Ask what they reveal about your needs and values. Curiosity transforms emotional experience into learning. Another important aspect is resilience. Resilience allows you to recover from emotional setbacks. Every person experiences disappointment. Resilient individuals learn from these moments rather than becoming discouraged. Another valuable skill is emotional clarity. Clarity means expressing feelings in simple language. Clear communication prevents confusion. Another powerful element is emotional presence. Presence means being fully engaged in conversation. When someone feels heard, trust grows. Trust strengthens relationships. Another important element is emotional humility. Recognizing that everyone experiences vulnerability creates compassion. Compassion improves understanding. Another valuable habit is emotional observation. Observe emotional signals without rushing to conclusions. Observation increases accuracy. Another important skill is emotional adaptability. Different environments require different responses. Adaptability strengthens communication. Another powerful benefit of emotional intelligence is improved decision-making. When emotions are recognized and managed, decisions become clearer. Another important advantage is conflict resolution. Emotional awareness allows you to navigate disagreements calmly. Calm communication prevents escalation. Another valuable outcome is stronger relationships. When people feel understood, trust deepens. Trust creates lasting connections. Mastering human nature requires more than observing behavior. It requires understanding the emotional forces behind behavior. Emotional intelligence provides this understanding. When you recognize emotions clearly, you respond with calm awareness instead of automatic reaction. And when you combine emotional awareness with self-control, you develop the ability to understand people deeply while maintaining control of yourself. Chapter 12. Living with awareness in a world of hidden motives. Understanding human nature is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It is about becoming aware. Awareness allows you to see the deeper forces behind behavior, allows you to understand motivations that often remain hidden. Most people move through life reacting to events without reflection. Someone speaks harshly, and they respond with anger. Someone praises them, and they respond with trust. But human behavior is rarely that simple. Behind every action lies a combination of emotions, experiences, and intentions. When you develop awareness, you begin to see these hidden layers. This awareness changes how you experience the world. You stop reacting automatically. You start observing. Observation creates space between events and reactions. In that space, you gain freedom. Freedom to choose your response instead of following emotional impulses. Living with awareness begins with paying attention. Pay attention to your thoughts. Notice how your mind interprets events. A simple comment may trigger irritation. A small delay may trigger anxiety. These reactions often reveal deeper emotional patterns. Recognizing these patterns increases self-understanding. Self-understanding strengthens self-control. Another important part of awareness is observing others without quick judgment. People behave according to their experiences and emotions. Sometimes their actions appear unfair. Sometimes they appear confusing. But when you look deeper, patterns often emerge. A person who constantly seeks approval may have experienced rejection in the past. A person who dominates conversations may fear losing influence. A person who withdraws emotionally may protect themselves from disappointment. Understanding these possibilities creates patience. Patience improves communication. Another important part of awareness is recognizing manipulation. Manipulation appears when someone attempts to control your emotions in order to influence your decisions. Understanding manipulation helps you remain calm. When emotional pressure appears, pause, observe the situation. Ask yourself what emotion is being triggered. Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it urgency? Naming the emotion weakens its influence. Another important skill is maintaining independence of thought. Many people adopt beliefs simply because those beliefs are popular. Social environments influence opinions strongly, but awareness encourages reflection. Ask yourself why you believe something. Examine evidence. Think carefully. Independent thinking protects you from unnecessary influence. Another important aspect of awareness is emotional balance. Strong emotions are natural, but when emotions dominate, clear thinking becomes difficult. Learning to observe emotions without immediately acting on them increases stability. Stability improves decision-making. Another important skill is recognizing patterns in behavior. People often repeat similar reactions in different situations. These patterns reveal deeper habits. When you observe patterns, behavior becomes more predictable. Predictability reduces confusion. Another important part of living with awareness is humility. No one understands human behavior perfectly. Even the most careful observers make mistakes. Remaining open to new information improves perception. Humility prevents overconfidence. Another valuable habit is reflection. Take time to think about your experiences. Consider your reactions. Consider the reactions of others. Reflection strengthens understanding. Another important element of awareness is patience. Understanding human nature takes time. Patterns reveal themselves gradually. Patience improves observation. Another important skill is emotional resilience. Difficult situations will appear in life. People may misunderstand you. People may disagree with you. Awareness helps you respond calmly, instead of reacting emotionally. Calm responses preserve your energy. Another powerful element of awareness is curiosity. Curiosity keeps the mind open. Instead of assuming motives immediately, remain curious. Ask questions. Observe behavior. Curiosity deepens understanding. Another important part of awareness is communication. Clear communication prevents many misunderstandings. When you express thoughts calmly and clearly, conflict decreases. Another valuable skill is listening deeply. Listening reveals emotional signals. People often communicate feelings indirectly. Careful listening allows you to notice these signals. Another important concept is boundaries. Awareness helps you recognize when boundaries are necessary. Not every request deserves agreement. Not every opinion deserves acceptance. Boundaries protect emotional balance. Another important idea is compassion. Understanding human nature often reveals vulnerability. People struggle with fear. They struggle with insecurity. They struggle with disappointment. Recognizing these struggles creates empathy. Empathy improves relationships. Another important skill is emotional independence. Your emotional state should not depend entirely on external approval. When you maintain inner stability, outside influence weakens. Another valuable habit is gratitude. Gratitude shifts attention toward positive experiences. Positive focus strengthens emotional resilience. Another important element of awareness is presence. Presence means fully experiencing the current moment. When attention remains present, perception improves. You notice details that normally go unnoticed. Another important idea is accepting complexity. Human behavior rarely has simple explanations. Motives often overlap. Emotions often conflict. Accepting complexity prevents oversimplification. Another valuable principle is integrity. Integrity means aligning actions with values. When behavior reflects values consistently, trust grows. Trust strengthens relationships. Another important idea is emotional honesty. Honesty about feelings reduces misunderstanding. Clear communication strengthens connections. Another important skill is adaptability. Different situations require different responses. Adaptability improves social navigation. Another important element of awareness is calm thinking. Calm thinking prevents unnecessary conflict. When you remain calm, you see situations more clearly. Another valuable habit is continuous learning. Human nature is complex. Learning never ends. Remaining curious strengthens wisdom. Another powerful benefit of awareness is freedom from unnecessary stress. When you understand behavior, surprises decrease. You anticipate patterns. Preparation improves stability. Another important concept is responsibility. You cannot control the behavior of others, but you can control your reactions. Responsibility for your responses creates personal power. Another valuable principle is simplicity. Clear thinking simplifies complex situations. When you focus on essential information, decisions become easier. Another important element of awareness is resilience. Resilience allows recovery from challenges. Challenges become opportunities for learning. Another valuable habit is emotional balance. Balance prevents extreme reactions. Balanced behavior builds trust. Another important idea is personal growth. Understanding human nature also reveals your own patterns. Awareness creates opportunities for improvement. Growth becomes possible. Another powerful outcome of awareness is confidence. Confidence grows when you understand yourself and others. This confidence does not rely on dominance. It relies on clarity. Another important principle is calm observation. Observe before reacting. Observation reveals deeper meaning. Another valuable skill is patience with others. People change slowly. Expecting immediate change often creates frustration. Patience strengthens relationships. Another important element of awareness is acceptance. Not every situation can be controlled. Acceptance reduces unnecessary struggle. Another valuable principle is kindness. Kindness improves human interaction. Small gestures create positive influence. Another important habit is self-respect. Respecting your own values strengthens confidence. Another powerful idea is balance between awareness and trust. Understanding hidden motives does not require constant suspicion. It simply means remaining attentive. You remain open to others while protecting your independence. Another important idea is wisdom. Wisdom grows from experience, reflection, and awareness. When you observe carefully, learn patiently, and respond thoughtfully, wisdom develops naturally. Mastering human nature does not mean controlling the world around you. It means understanding the forces that shape behavior. It means recognizing emotions, motivations, and patterns. Most importantly, it means mastering your own responses. When awareness guides your actions, you move through life with greater clarity. You recognize manipulation before it influences you. You understand people without reacting impulsively, and you maintain control of your own mind. In a world full of hidden motives, awareness becomes your greatest strength.